Good afternoon, everyone. It's Lynda here from Banjo's Beat House with our weekly Facebook Live video. And this week we are kicking off Seed Bead September. So we are celebrating in store and here all things seed bead. So it is my favorite month of the year when we celebrate all things seedies, whether that is delicate beads, round beads, if you want to go into the shapes and all sorts of things you can have fun hand sewing with or stringing and using in lots of different ways as we've done over the years. So for the next couple of weeks, we will be doing the Bead with Linda program. So thank you to everybody who purchased the little kits filled with all sorts of goodies that I'll be using as I create 3 different projects. So this is the first project today, and it's part 1, and we'll be finishing it off next week. So I'm going to tip you guys down, and we're going to take a look at some of the things that we are working with today. So in your kit, you will have received some of these acrylic AB flat backs. So I'm just experimenting with some different sources of things. So I thought we'd give those a go in the box. They are super, super sparkly, as you can see under light. We are working with our new felt, and I've just attached some Fireline thread to mine ready to go. We have got some size 11 Miyuki seed beads in the bronze aluminium finish. We have got some super sparkly AB cup chain, which at the moment is only available in the box. I will get it and some more in and range it in the shop because it's just so sparkly. You also have some vitriol O beads we're going to be working with, and you also have a piece of silver leather and some ear hooks and wire guard. So of course that means we're making an earring. So this is my sample, just missing the ear hook. So you can see there it's so sparkly, and on the back we've got the silver leather. My piece of that's at home, so I'll have that here for next week. So yeah, so today we're just going to do some very basic seed bead embroidery as an introduction. We're going to get the layer around, and I'm going to start the cup chain, explain how to finish the cup chain, and then if you are following along what I'm doing, the third row of the silver needs to be added, and then we'll pick up next week and finish it off and turn this one into an earring. So let's get started. So as I said, I already glued mine onto my felt, and I've also rounded my corners just so we don't get any threads catching, because there's nothing worse than your thread getting caught and you wind up shredding your thread. So we want to avoid all of that. So we've got our needle, I've just come up next to my acrylic, so you can kind of just see it there. And we're going to pick up 4 seed beads. So this is where we do back stitching, just to anchor down these. So if you are familiar, you can either, often people will do it with 2 beads, some people will do 4. There is also a 2 needle technique version for this, and I'm going to demonstrate that in project 3, so that you can see that technique as well, so that we can, just have fun building everybody's little skill sets up here. So I'm just doing a gentle pushback of that because it is the starting one, and often I will just start with 2, but to make my brain function when I didn't have a great night's sleep, we're just going to do we're going to leave it at 4 so that I can keep easy maths. And I'm just coming up again on the inside, so against the acrylic, but with the seed beads on the outer side, so that my thread path stays close and in, which is important when you then have to go and cut. I'm working with about a wingspan and a half of thread. So a wingspan for me is the full reach of both of my arms. For some, a wingspan is one arm to their chin or to their opposite shoulder. So it's really up to you how you interpret a wingspan, but for me, it is the full length. And then I did a half, which for me is the arm to opposite shoulder. I just popped my needle back in there. So I've come back out through there, and we are going to pick up 4 more of these seed beads. So this is a great way it's an easy bezel doing this. One thing to be careful of is to make sure when you are gluing your pieces down that you don't have glue spillage. Clean that up or work when the glue is wet. I had a bit of glue spillage with the cup chain on the sample piece and ended up breaking 3 needles trying to get through the glue layer. So I ended up ramming my awl in to create a path for my needle. Not the nicest or easiest thing to do, so just be careful. Much easier to work with wet glue than it is to sometimes get through really hard dry glue. Um, so I thought also, because these more cooperatives are quite new um, for you guys, they have been selling really, really well, and I know Paula absolutely loves them. Oops, I just went on the wrong side of my thread then. I thought I'd pop them in for you guys so you can have a chance to experiment and see how fun they are to work with. So it's nice to be able to work with the check colors, but with the Miyuki precision. So it's very handy having a whole lot of new colors basically being added to your palette. And as always, fun trying to find the bead holes. So when I was looking at the coloring for this particular box, I firstly only wanted to focus on the AB here and the AB in the cup chain. So I did pull out some Labrador for the O beads. I also pulled out some white and crystal AB in the Miyuki, but it just got washed out, so I didn't go with it. So I played with the silver instead to give that contrast. So you'll see at the moment I've only got 2 beads on. I'm trying to navigate this corner. So for that, I just want to go through just 2 beads here. Hi, Wynette. Thank you for joining us. By doing just the 2 beads, I can anchor and really control that corner. I'm just going to try and get that to focus. So you can see by just doing that, I've got a greater sense of control because you are at this point. So I can put my needle down there and I can come back up. So sometimes you need to adapt to suit, I guess, let's call it the terrain that you're working in. So that you know don't wind up with craziness. Oftentimes this is where I will adopt the 2 needle approach, which I will show you guys on project 3, and you'll see how that can also help when you're dealing with crazy points. So yeah. So Wynette was in this week and asked a really good question on what needles do I use. I prefer to work with a long, which is, because I've got good hand control. Um, Sharps are more commonly used in seed bead embroidery just because when you are stabbing through repeatedly, these points do get blunted, particularly with stiff stuff. But I found using the felt that doesn't happen anywhere near as fast. I prefer, again, a size 10 just because of the thickness of the needle. It's also got a nicer eye, and I find the eyes on the long needles are easier to thread than the ones on the sharps. But I know many people prefer both, and it comes down to personal preference. When I'm doing a lot of things with teeny tiny beads, so 15s, I tend to drop down to a size 12 needle. So if you see where a designer has said you might need a size 10 or a 12 needle, it's usually because you're going to be doing multiple passes through a 15. You can generally, with a 10, get 1 or 2 passes through on a 15. You may run into issues with some of the metallic Duracoats. So if you think about it, a metallic Duracoat is, your crystal glass bead that has been coated in the metallic finish, and then it's been coated in the Duracoat to protect it. So all of a sudden you've got a little bit of a wider bead, but you also have a narrower hole. And sometimes those holes get really, really skinny. And so you will need to drop a needle size down. What I tend to do is when I encounter those, when I've got a size 10 needle on, is I push them off to the side, and I have a little container marked tiny hold for those 15s. They go into that, and when I'm doing a project where I already have a size 12 needle on, I go and grab those ones so that I know I can use them up. So that way I'm not wasting any beads in my cull. Sorry, said not to tangle on this, and my mouse is getting tangled. So it's always fun beading when you've got all your computer equipment right next to you. Same thing happens to me at home as well. And I'm sure it does to many of you. It's always fun seeing pictures of beaders with fur balls on their laps or their desks, or little paws suddenly appearing and causing chaos. I don't have the fur ball problem. I have tech that gets in my way. So another question I do get a lot is, what do I use an awl for? Awls are very handy. So if you don't know, this little guy is an awl. He is fabulous if you need to break a bead. So if you've ever overstrung or you've got a bead that's a little bit dodgy, you can simply come along and just twist in gently. Obviously, I'm not going to do that because that one's fine. You will break the bead. You need to extract that bead out so you don't damage your thread. They're handy for punching holes in things as well, and they're also handy when you've just got to scrape a little bit of glue somewhere. So I'll often just dip the tip of that into my E6000, and particularly with cupchain, I will slide it under where I need my cupchain to go so I don't have quite as much mess. So yeah, that's a couple of ways I use my awl. Also very handy when I'm doing starts of ropes, and you just need something to, base it over. I'll often set it up on the tip of my awl and stitch on that. You just got to be very careful, obviously, because it's got a sharp point. Um, but yeah, it's handy. Okay. The other questions I get often when I'm using fireline is, what do I cut fireline with? So I've got a pair, we've got scissors in the shop that are being designed to cut fireline and Eslon fire. Um, I have got a pair of serrated scissors that I use that I've had for a while. Fireline does tend to dull these scissors after a while. Serrations do help lengthen that process a little bit. There's another brand that Paula now swears by, Shimano. I will find the company link for that one. And then when I'm joining or finishing off, I'm now using my thread zapper. The rechargeable one's great. I'm still on my first charge. I use that thing quite a bit when I have been working on all of our bead boxes. So yeah, doing lots of finishing off and thread joins. So he's been quite the handy addition to my toolkit. So yes, as I said, I am not the fastest beater in the world, so I will get you guys set to a point where you can come and have your homework if you're following my particular design. I did put extras of these little guys into your kits, so you can have fun creating your own designs. If you don't want to do a pair of earrings and you want to have fun, um, I did look at options where we fanned them out and we created all sorts of different interesting shapes. But yeah, it's really up to you how you want to have fun playing. And if you feel like sharing your playing, we have the inspiration group attached to Banjo's Facebook page. Feel free to drop in your works in progress. I've got a little bit of a mess going on here, which I don't think I can salvage, so I am going to have to de-thread, which is never fun. Keep the beads on. Okay. Just make sure I've got a nice flat piece of fire iron. Now I need to thread over a darker surface. The contrast just helps me, so I'm doing that off camera. I apologize. To do it on here, I won't be able to see my thread. So rounding that curve, I actually think I'm going to do this in 2 beads, not 4. So we'll slide those off. And that's just going to give me a little bit more control. So as much as, this is a 4 bead, I prefer generally the 4 bead because it gets you through faster. Obviously, if you're using size 8 seed beads, this would be a lot faster. Sometimes dropping down to 2 is what you need to do. But I generally try and do this in even numbers because I often use this as a base for building peyote off. So it's just easier if it is an even. In this particular project, it wouldn't actually matter because we're not building up, we're just going around in flat layers, so you can use an odd number. So we are on the home stretch. Oops. Now I can't pick up beads. So you always want to just tuck your beads down, make sure that they are all nice and close to each other. And avoid any tangling. Nearly had it. Oops, I've gone off camera. Oh, I'm viewing 2 different views here. Sorry. I'm just checking on the Facebook view, which is running a little behind my live view. So again, juggling, beating with tech is always fun. So we are coming up on the end. So with here, I just want to make sure they will nestle in. So you can see I can just slot those guys in. Rather than go down like I normally would, I'm actually going to go through 2 beads so that we get a nice seamless finish there. And I'm just going to pop my needle down. Whoops. If you heard that ding dong, that is a customer currently entering the store. And we're just going to come back up through there. And go in. Now, one of the things I do like to do when I'm doing this sort of work is just to fill the holes of my seed beads. So I tend to run my thread around again because this is going to be sitting flat. This just gives a chance to pull out any of the tension, smooth out the beads, and getting it to sit the way you wanted to. If you realized, you needed to add another bead in, this is an opportunity to do that as well. I, in theory, could have fitted one more in there, but I'm not going to squeeze that in. I don't think it would sit right by the time we do everything else. So I'm going to choose to not on this occasion. Always fun trying to find the hole. Again, this is where a nice long needle comes in very handy because you can just weave your way through several beads at once. This is also a tester on my tension because I don't want to pull this too tight. The idea of this is just to be putting extra thread in, just to get those beads just to settle and not be, so wavy. Okay, we're going to come out there. And that is our first row all done. So it's nice and settled. I'm happy with the way everything is sitting. And now we're going to start our cup chain. So I'm going to go down back through on the center just so we can end off this part of the process. And I'm going to bring my needle up on back around about halfway. And I've got my cup chain. Now I have not cut my cup chain to length. I tend to try and keep my piece on and then work with it. So I am also going to cheat a little, and I'm going to leave a few pieces actually dangling at the end here. This is, personal preference. I like to do this and then have a broom to go and glue this down and stitch it all in one go. You can little dab of glue and stitch away. It's your personal preference as to how much of this you glue or leave loose. It's also your preference whether you stretch out your cup chain or you bunch it up to get that really nice close mega wattage sparkle effect. Personally, I like the megawatt sparkle, so that's what I'm going to go for, is the closeness. So I'm just going to leave two dangling, and I'm going down on my needle. So I'm just capturing that cup chain. Now, this is where if you've got colored cup chain and you've got colors here and you are going to see spaces, it might be worth swapping to thread that matches the color of the cup chain, just so you don't have any visible markings. Or if you're okay with seeing just, a tiny hint of your fire line or your thread, if it's not a matching color, then by all means go for it. So that is just tacked down, and basically that is what we keep doing all the way around. My challenge is trying to see this under all of the light. So that's the one we've tacked down. So I'm just going to push that one up against it and try and put my thumb on that piece and bring my needle up between the cup chain and the seed beads. Okay, and I'm just going to make sure these two are smushed up together how I want it. And you can see I brought my thread over just so I know it's out of the way. And we're going to go down again. And I like to do these twice so that the cup chain is really secure. You can do it, 3-4 times if you want to. I find twice is enough. And yeah, so that is our first two pieces of, or first two cups actually on. So then it's a matter of smushing that next one up and just holding that into place, getting my needle in there. And again, just making sure that's smushed where I want it, getting my needle set. And the cup chains do have tiny, pieces of metal holding the rhinestone in place. So you do want to be making sure you're not catching your thread on that, that it's not getting caught in it. So you're not creating any, thread snags or damaging your thread. So things to be careful of when you are stitching with your cup chain. And yeah, so from here, You need to keep going all the way around, which is why I said I'm not going to sit here and do that, because that will take me a very long time to go slow and do this correctly. Um, as we were with the seed beads going around the two tips, it is just a matter of massaging that corner how you want it. So you just get that to where you need it to be. When you come to your end, so let's just assume we're at the end. It's just with a sharp pair of scissors, but not your good file line or anything else. Use, if you have to use your um, snips that you cut findings with, but just not your good scissors. Craft scissors will be fine. You need to get it so that it is nice and close. So for me, that's about there, so that that cup will actually sit in against that one quite nicely. This is where little bit of E6000 and just get it so under my loose one, and a little bit in this section here, and then try and get that stitched down as quickly as you can while the glue is wet. I have used the Gorilla Gel Glue in the past, which does have probably about a 15-minute drying cycle, but I got a phone call in the middle of that and it was rock hard, and that's the one where I had to use an awl. So for that, I ended up having to punch holes, so I had somewhere for my needle to go. So the great thing is, if you do have to do that, we are adding a third layer of seed beads around, so you can kind of cover your sins, so to speak. So um, it's up to you guys. You can play around with different rows of seed beads around here, add your cup chain, add another row of seed beads for your edge. This is where you guys get to have some fun creating and designing your own. If you want, go and pick up other colors. So play with your whites, play with your ABs. You could have done this in gold, but I only found the AB cup chain in silver, so that to me dictated silver. But have fun, get it to a finished state so that the top part is all done and you are at a state where you're happy to cut, and we'll do the backing. And that is what we'll be doing next week when we hit part 2. So I hope you have enjoyed Bead with Lynda for part 1 of our first project, making this fun little sparkly earring. I'll be back next week with part 2, where we actually finish what we started and turn it into said earring. And we look at some brick stitch and how we glue and do all of that. So until then, have a safe, creative, fun weekend, and I will see you next time. Bye for now.